I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the Cryptid Podcast tonight. I'm your host, Dan Hamilton. You guys, I got a pretty cool guest with me tonight. I got Tyler, and he's from a little north of Toronto up in Canada. My first Canadian guest. And I'm going to tell you, I asked for people to send in any type of encounters they've had, cryptids. I started adding UFOs, and yeah, Tyler's got some pretty interesting stories. So I just want to say thank you so much for everybody for joining the show. Thank you for your subscriptions, your likes, your comments. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this. And remember, if anybody's had an encounter of any type, cryptid, UFO, please send me an email at the Cryptid Podcast 72 at gmail.com. Again, the Cryptid Podcast 72 at gmail.com if you'd like to come on the show and share. Or if you have an encounter, you really don't want to come on the show, but you would like me to read it on the show, again, shoot me an email, the Cryptid Podcast 72 at gmail.com. Now, without further ado, I'm going to bring this amazing guest on tonight. And everybody, let's welcome Tyler to the show. Tyler, welcome to the show, buddy.
That was amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, man. How you doing?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Daniel.
Dude, I'm digging those shades, man.
This is my gimmick, my bit.
That's awesome, dude.
Plus people get to look at less of my face, which is probably a good thing.
There you go. So, hey, man, you and I were chatting a little bit before the show, and you'd mentioned some things. And what really caught me off, didn't catch me off, but it caught me by surprise, is that you practice a thing called CE-5 meditation.
Yes.
And so I'm going to let you take over the show so you can kind of talk about, what CE-5 is, meditation is, give it a brief description. And then when you've practiced that, what was the outcome? What happened to you starting September 7th of 2024?
Okay. I'll preface this by saying I was a police officer for 13 years. I recently left. I was an acting sergeant during COVID, trained investigator. Left policing, always had a fascination with UFOs. I just wanted to see if there'd been any more sightings. I never really looked into it. Always curious, wanted to know how they worked. Started looking at sightings. The story had gone way farther than I had anticipated with the Disclosure Project and the CE-5 meditations that are going on. So basically, I heard about this thing called CE-5, which is stands for Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. I think it's Hynek that came up with this scale of ET contact. Long story short, it's developed by Dr. Stephen Greer and his Center for Extraterrestrial Research down in the States, where you guys are somewhere. But basically, you can do a meditation. You can go into what is called an expanded state of expanded awareness, where you are literally starting to have the sensation of becoming the area around you. If you can get to that state and you do these protocols, it's just a thought protocol. You just basically imagine your location on Earth and extend that into space. UFOs will show up. And tens of thousands of people have been doing this around the world. It was news to me when I found out about it about a year and a half ago now, but it's very real. So I found out about that, and then I met a bunch of contactees through doing this work, and I realized there are Canadians that are having contact experiences with beings that don't really make sense to them on the ground in Ontario and everywhere that around the world more and more frequently. So I recognize there's a whole in that respect for helping these people. So we started the Lost Channel CE-5 Eco Retreat and Research Center, and we're reaching out to these people and trying to fill in some holes where they might have in their story if we only look at the world through a Newtonian perspective. Because here in Canada, we still teach Newtonian science, which is from the 1700s, and it doesn't really apply to what we know about the world today. So people are having experiences that if you don't have a foundation of basic principles of quantum physics and quantum mechanics don't really make sense, because it didn't really make sense to me because I didn't have this understanding. So that's kind of what we're working on at the research centers, just getting my local communities up to speed about the implications of quantum mechanics and how it applies to these UFO experiences. Anyways, so you do this meditation protocol. It all has to do with consciousness, because in the West, they teach us in our medicine right now that they don't really know what consciousness is. They think it's part of the brain, but they're not really sure. That's, from what I understand, how the West approaches consciousness from a medical perspective. But the intelligence guys and the quantum physicists and all these guys, they already have consciousness pretty much figured out. It's the universe. The fact that you are awake is the universe itself, and you can interact with the universe. And this is basically what CE-5 is doing. Excuse me. So you do these meditation protocols. The more people that do it together, the better, the stronger the signal is, you could say. But yeah, you do it. I didn't believe it at first. And the first time I did it, I had my eyes closed, but I set up a camera, and this little black pewter sphere you can see going around the thing, and I got a still shot of that. It wasn't the most damning evidence. I wasn't 100% convinced, but then I've since done it with groups in Toronto, and all the light will come up and do patterns and shoot across the sky, and had that experience September 7th, I think. And then we've been training with a group of guys up at the Lost Channel Research Center up in Ontario. And this past October, we managed it was just me and one other guy. It was the last trip of the season. We got up there. We didn't think anything was going to happen. Nothing really happened the time before. Something before that happened. Just one of the orbs showed up, but nothing, no big crap. We wanted something big in our faces that was undeniable to everyone. So just shooting the shit out on the deck. A CE-5 is all about creating a vibe, creating an atmosphere. Like, you are literally the energy required to send these signals. So it's all about learning how to understand what a human being is from a quantum perspective, and implementing that science. So we did the CE-5 meditation. We got to a state of expanded awareness, and then we did what they call a resonant energy location protocol. Which basically, everyone has an aura, a morphogenic field. If you can envision that in a group of people, and then send that energy up into space as far as you can send it, and then just visualize that for as long as you can, your location on Earth, like your Google Maps, zooming out and then zooming back in. If you can do that for as long as you can maintain that image in your head, things are going to happen. And it'll be when you're least expecting it. Some people will get like a telepathic kind of thing where they'll just be hanging out, shooting shit, and then they'll get an instinct to look, and there'll be a craft or something in the sky. That's happened to me a couple times. It happens to all kinds of people. But there's other stuff that happens too. There'll be like energy beings that'll come and sit in a chair, and you'll see like the chair indent, but it all has to do with the holographic nature of our reality that hasn't really been explained to us, and that's kind of what we're hoping to change a little bit, because I didn't know any of this information. It's startling to me, but I don't know how much you want to go into this, because we could be talking for hours.
I mean, you can go ahead, and you had mentioned that on the 26th was like the big.
Oh yeah. So the big
what
one
happened on the 26th?
So okay, so we're hanging out. We did the CE-5 meditation. We got a fire outside. It's October in Ontario. It's getting chilly. So we see a light in the sky over to our west, which is towards marina, towards the Lost Channel Marina, where we are there. And so I got this telescope. So this light showed up, and it's sitting there, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I don't wonder what that is. Got the telescope. I'm going to set my telescope up, and then I get that intuition thing to look up. And I look up, and there's this one orb, what we call orbs, just like a white light, coming towards us was slowing down right over top of the research center, and we noticed that it wasn't just one orb; it had this dimly illuminated tail following it, and then we realized how low it was and how huge it was. It was probably at least the size of like a commercial 747 jumbo jet, whatever they are called. At least the size of that, maybe twice the size. So it had its front light on, and then as it came overhead, we could see that the tail of it was dimly illuminated, but at the very tip of it was another dim light. As soon as we noticed that, it's like gave us like, okay, you notice that? Here, check this out. And the tail light illuminated like a glowing liquid across the whole bottom of this thing. And then we could see it was one of these cigar crafts that people are seeing all over the place. So blew our freaking minds. We followed it towards the other side of the property and sat on my other dock, and we could it basically parked in the sky. It looked like a star. We could tell it went to a point, and then it just stopped. It was there for about I think half an hour to an hour before we finally were cold enough. We went back inside. So that was the most significant one, because that was a lot of these sightings are what you call ethereal or plasma. They're just energy balls that appear, but this was like a physical craft. So pretty astonishing night for us. And we haven't done it since then because it's been so effective. We're kind of pacing ourselves here to see what happens next, because we're almost shooting for 100%. So we're really we got a group of guys, and we're going to do some events this summer, but we're going to treat it with the respect it deserves and not do it every weekend for fun kind of thing. But people are doing this protocol in Canada. There's groups of Canadians doing it specifically for Sasquatch. They're going to the forest and they'll enter meditative states, or they'll have someone do remote viewing or astral projection and check out an area beforehand to find these beings. And they'll go into the forest and they'll do CE-5. It's the same protocols that work for the UFOs as it does for Sasquatch. This is what we're figuring out. So we're developing Sasquatch contact protocols as well. So that's one of the other things we're working on.
Yeah, that's I'm not gonna lie, I've always been fascinated by this stuff. I've had one UFO encounter when I was a junior in high school. And then when I was in the military, I still do a little meditation. I don't do it as much as I did when I was in the military, but I vividly remember times where I would be in my dorm room, I'd have my blackout curtains drawn, and I would start meditating, and I could honestly feel like my body was projecting outside of itself.
You were, because that's what happens, and if you keep doing it, you did it naturally. People work for years to try and do that. Some people can do it right away.
And I remember feel like I was walking through my dormitory while I was still in my dorm room.
You were. That's your astral body, your energy body, your soul, whatever you want to call it. People have a million names for it, but
yeah,
the government uses this stuff for spycraft and warfare, and we're not supposed to talk about it, but it's real.
Yeah.
And have you heard of the Monroe Institution?
I have not.
Okay, so in the States, I forget where it is, but it's in the States. It's the Monroe Institution. It's basically Jedi training. It's where they teach people how to do all this stuff, do the astral projection and the remote viewing. But Robert Monroe was basically contacted by an interdimensional, interfrequential being in the 70s or whatever, and he told him how to do this whole process of leaving your body and all the skills you need to navigate world outside of your body. But so he's the one that developed that, and then the CIA basically funded that, and they developed their own stuff since then off of Robert Monroe's stuff. So if you're interested, anyone's interested in that stuff, that's like astral projection psychic boot camp essentially.
Yeah. So you mentioned you have a couple channels or groups. Go ahead and plug those.
Yeah, I only have the Facebook groups right now.
Okay.
Really, it's the Lost Channel. CE-5 Meditation Eco Retreat and Research Center. And it's just it's my small property. It's a beautiful property on Lake Cowigamog up in Ontario, designed specifically for people that are looking to get into CE-5 and they want a quiet spot to do it privately. So people can book that. I'm only renting it to people that are interested in CE-5.
Yeah. Well, send me a link, and what I'll do is when I do the description on your
Okay, I'll send you the link.
and I'll have it set up there. Now you mentioned you were a police officer. You're a Leo, law enforcement officer. That's nickname that we call him down here in the States.
Gotcha.
In the Air Force, I was security police officer, and after that,
cool.
I was correctional officer. So, I'm in that Leo genre, military wise, and then like the low spectrum, I guess you can say, in the civilian world. But, let's talk about your career as a Leo for a little bit, because
Sure.
I know my buddy, he's my brother from another mother. He is also a former Leo. He's the host of Mysteries Unknown, and him and I have talked privately on things that we have seen, because we're out and about all the time at different hours of the day, and I always say people walk around every day with their head in the sand because they're not looking up.
I was just going to say, it doesn't matter who you are. If you spend enough time outside and you look up, you're going to see something at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
People that spend enough time outside and look up see things.
Right. Now on do you recall anything in your Leo career? It's over a decade. Do you recall any high strangeness that you responded to a call, and you hear what's coming over your radio through dispatch, and you're kind of like, you're responding, and the whole time you're thinking about this, and you get there, you're still kind of left, scratching your head, like, I'm not sure what was going on.
So nothing that's come over the radio. I do recall going to a call one time, and I wasn't able to look into this, but there was a light or a pair of lights low hanging in a field over to my left. And I have no idea if it was a big drone or whatever, but that's the only time that I saw something on the job that I didn't really compute at the time, and I didn't really have time to look into whatever this was because it wasn't my priority at the time. That's the only time that I saw something anomalous at work. And if something, no, I know what you're getting at as in terms of a call that came in that didn't really make sense to me. No, I can't say that I had anything like that. I always had a Newtonian left brain explanation for everything, for every call that I've ever done. I've never had to venture into anything quantum related to fit the pieces together. No.
I think most Leos are kind of geared the same way, is that we try to think as logical as possible. We try to put things in their own little boxes.
Yeah, you have to be. Our justice system is built on a left brain Newtonian.
Yeah.
You're right. You can't. There's no room for anything else in it.
I had mentioned to you that when I was a junior in high school, I had a full on sighting of UFO. It was amazing. We lived on a lake in a town north of Olympia, Washington, called Lacey. And my dad was out, whatever my dad was doing, but I had my girlfriend over, and we walked down to the boat dock, and beautiful, beautiful night. Wasn't too cold, wasn't too warm. And we were just laying on the dock, and we were stargazing. And all of a sudden, you just felt this electricity in the air. And you're like, what is that? Like, legit, the hair on my arms and on the back of my neck and everything, we're standing up. And I'm like, what is going on? You hear this low hum. And she looks at me. She's like, what's going on? I said, do you feel that? Do you hear that? She's like, I do. And then we look over, like, back and to the left, and there's this big swath of woods, forest. And we see looks like a spotlight that's flashing in the in and
Yeah.
around the woods, and we're like, what is that? Well, now the humming's getting louder and louder. So we just get up and we run back to the house. Go flying into my house, run up in my bedroom. My bedroom was in a loft, and we had like these shutter windows that overlooked the dining room in the living room. But at the top, eye level with me, were a series of probably like six windows. And if you look through those windows, you could see the boat dock. You can see the lake, see everything, and you could still feel and hear that humming, and still feel like that electricity. And that light started coming out over and like shined on the boat dock. And then we saw something moving super slow out over the water. And if this thing was maybe football field size,
Oh, big one. Wow.
huge, huge. And it just kept going slow, slow. And then I got almost the whole back view of it. And then it just went like this, straight up, and
What
it was
what
gone.
what shape was it?
It was like a mostly triangle shape,
Okay.
but it just shot straight up, boom, and it was gone.
So I've been looking into these contact situations to find out why some people are having contact like that and why some people are not. You're basically like the situation you described me. It was your girlfriend.
Mhm.
So you and young love, you're both in an extremely high frequency state of your lives. You love each
Yep.
other. It's a wonderful time, right?
Yeah.
So that automatically puts you in a higher frequency state. Everything in existence has a frequency, including your emotions. So couples will have contact like that all the time, simply because of the CE-5 principles involved. So you're having a really good time. You're in love. You're both outside in nature. That's another point. If you're out in nature, you're basically more energetic. You're more plugged into the earth. The further you go into a city, the less Schumann resonance you get. It's like the natural frequency of the earth.
Right.
That's why everyone tells you to do your gardening barefoot. That
Mhm.
there's actual science that says now, yeah, you should be barefoot at least once a day. You're basically a battery with 1,000,000 volts. You need to be grounded to the earth, or that energy in you can make you sick.
Right.
So you're out in nature. You got another point there, and you're both looking up in wonder, questioning things that are bigger than yourselves. Right? That's like a beacon for UFOs. That's like, these guys are on the next frequency of consciousness. We're gonna go and say hello, and that's what you replicate when you do CE-5, essentially.
Wow. And it's funny. I've told this story a few times, but I never. I told you because I wanted a breakdown of it. Like, hey, why do you think? And I mean, that's a great answer that you provided for me. I had another podcast one time.
Everything has to do with frequency. All contact, everything frequency. That's everything. Human beings are are tuning into layers of conscious frequency. That's what reality is. So, but you can target your consciousness level by the emotions and the place that you operate. If you operate from love and authenticity, and you only want to be of service to others, you're naturally a higher frequency person than
Mhm.
someone that's like like a pedophile or a drug addict or whatever. That's
Yeah.
really low frequency.
Right.
So, but
No, go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. I forget. Go ahead.
So I had another podcast called The Paranormal Narrative. And some weird things were going on, and I decided to shut it all down. And I deleted everything because
Oh, really?
I didn't want when I say some stuff was going down, bro, some stuff was going down. Uh,
Interesting.
so much that I didn't want my family affected. Like
Like supernatural stuff, or
yes,
like the man coming after you kind of thing?
no, supernatural, and then also I had people that were emailing me that were talking about things that I do not want to play with. I do not want to talk to, because I'm a firm believer if
I
you
get
put something out there, uh, it can manifest. And
exactly.
and I do not want to play with that. But the reason I'm bringing this up is that I had an amazing guest, and I wish I had her name. I know I have it written down somewhere, but she was from Germany, and she was in Belgium at this time, and she was hanging out with some friends, and she stepped out of the house to smoke a cigarette. And she said she stepped out, she lit her cigarette, and she just kind of meandered around, then looked up, and about 150 feet up in the air, maybe 200 feet, and then about 300 yards away from her was this massive UFO, like massive. And it was triangle shaped. And I asked her, I go, well, how long did you see this? She goes, long enough to smoke my cigarette. And I said, so what, 5 to 7 minutes? She's like, yeah, like 7 minutes. And I said, well, what did you see? She described to me, she described about how a main beam was coming out from like the bottom. And then there were 2 other red beams that were coming out and like searching, right? And when she saw that come out, she kind of got frightened. She went in the house to call her friends, like, hey, come out, look at this. She said she wasn't even gone 10 seconds, and she came out and it was gone. Now, what I find interesting with this story is that there's a show, Unsolved Mysteries. Are you familiar with that show?
I've heard of it. I can't say I've watched much of it.
Like, so there was I'm watching it on I think Amazon Prime, and I'm flipping through the channels, and I see like a UFO, or flipping through the episodes, I see a UFO encounter. And I'll be darned if it was not the exact same encounter she was describing. And the reason I know it's exact same is that the Belgian Air Force scrambled jets to intercept this. The base I was stationed at in Germany, now this didn't happen when I was in Germany, this happened years before, but the Air Force base that I was stationed is a German Air Force base. They scrambled jets, and she was able to provide me with documentation from multiple witnesses, multiple law enforcement agencies, and was even able to get some military documentation. I don't know how she got it, that all group everything together that this happened. And it was seen by multiple police agencies. It was seen by thousands of people, kind of like just like the Arizona Lights, the Phoenix Lights.
There's millions of witnesses at this point. I don't know. It's nonsensical that this main narrative is that they don't exist, but that's all changing right now. If we can get into
big
that,
time.
if you want to, but it's all changing right now. The whole world is going through a transition. It's going to get weird for a while.
Yep, I think it is. And it's the U.S. government is now. I don't know what the Canadian government stance is on it, but the U.S. government is now. They're releasing footage of Navy pilots and Air Force pilots that are encountering things while they're out on maneuvers.
Unfortunately, where I am, we don't get much information. It's like, to me, the Disclosure Project and what's happening in the U.S. and the UAP world is the biggest story in the world, because it has to deal with the nature of our reality. It's not what we typically teach in our schools, and that's going to have to change. But where I am in Canada, you're not getting anything other than the political fanning the fire. That's all we get here.
Yeah,
and we're not getting any real information, and so I'm trying to help a little bit, trying to reach out to police officers anyways, and I think they're going to have to hear this information from someone that has done the job that they have done and understands where they're coming from. So that's part of my narrative of why I'm doing this.
So back in like the 80s, there was a UFO incident in England, which they call the Roswell of England. And I want to say it was in Suffolk. And it was near, I want to say Mendenhall, but I could be wrong, an Air Force base. And there were Air Force security police, like what I did, that this thing landed like in the woods outside this area. And they went and investigated it. And they were all pretty much told, zip it. So, here it is, this was 2023, 2024. I started asking questions from people that I know that may have been stationed there at the time, because I was in the Air Force from 90 to 95. So, they may have been stationed there either during the time or after the time, or know somebody who was stationed there. And it's really, really weird, and it's funny, you can talk about Sasquatch and Dogman and the Rake and things like that.
What's the Rake? I haven't heard the Rake.
Oh, you haven't?
No, what's the
Bro,
rake?
do a Google search. They call them crawlers or the rake, RAKE, and just put down cryptid rake. Have you seen that movie called?
Okay, I'll do that later.
Have you seen that movie called Signs with Mel Gibson?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
the alien that's on
M.
there.
Night Shyamalan.
I
They have night one, right?
yeah, I think that's his.
Yeah.
The alien that's in that movie is similar to what I saw one time.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
crazy.
When
But
was that encounter?
that was in 19 that was the summer before my senior year. So that was like 1989. That's crazy. That was in Tennessee.
So what did you see a ship before that, or you just stumbled
No,
upon this guy?
didn't see a ship. I hung out with a buddy of mine. We used to hang out all the time. His dad owned a ton of land, like probably 200 acres, maybe more, maybe less. Again, I can't remember exact amount of acres. And his backyard was probably 2 acres in size. They had a pool and everything. And then it butted up against this plot, this swath of forest. And then if you went through this forest, through some of these trails that we'd cut through, using mini bikes and, stuff like that, trail bikes, then it opened up to areas where his dad planted crops like tobacco and soybeans and cotton and things like that. But literally in the middle of these woods was an old farmhouse, like probably from the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Right.
No windows, no doors. It was, nature was getting ready just to completely overtake this thing. Well, I'd come over. I was going to spend the night. And, his dad says, "Hey, me and your mom are going to this place. Here's all the numbers. Don't burn the house down. Don't call us unless someone's dying, dead, or the house burnt to the ground. I don't want the dogs in the house." So we get on some motorcycles and we take off going through the woods. And we've been driving for hours and hours, just hanging out, started getting a little late. We started coming back, and as we were coming through the woods, we drive right by that old house. Well, I looked over to the left, and as I looked over to the left, I see someone standing inside the house looking out the window at us as we blow by. Well, my buddy, he gets on it. He just takes off like, "Whap, whap, whap," and he's gone. Well, I open it up and I go to catch up to him. Normally, we'd go right back to the pole barn where we keep the tractors and the farm truck and everything like that. And that's where we kept
Right.
all the motorcycles. But he just pulled right up to like the back door, almost back deck of his house, and just dumped the bike and ran up into the house. So I go behind him. I go, "Dude, I go, "Dude, did you, I think I saw someone. Did you see?" He goes, "Dude, why do you think I took off?" And so I'm like, "Oh, okay." So,
That doesn't let you know.
yeah, I mean, I was like, "Okay." I know I saw something. So we get up there and we get in the house and stuff. He's like, "You hungry?" Yeah. So we're cooking some food and stuff. And I go, "Hey, dude," I go, look what I'm doing." And he comes walking out of the kitchen through the dining room, into the living room. And I'm sitting in his dad's chair. Now, I don't know how it is up in Canada, but down south, I know for certain down south that the man of the house has a certain chair he sits in, and no one else is allowed to sit in it. That's his chair. You have no
That's
business being
Papa
in the
Bear's
chair.
chair.
Exactly. And I go, "Look what I'm doing." So I'm sitting in his chair and I'm kind of rocking back and forth and turning it. And I got the remote control. And I'm just flipping through the stations, right? Well, I hear this scratchy noise and I'm thinking it's something with the TV. So I turn it way up. I don't hear nothing. I turn it way down. I don't hear nothing. But I keep hearing this scratch, like scratch, 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 scratch. And I'm like, "What is that?" And this is going on for like 10 minutes. And as I'm sitting in the chair, there's an end table right next to me with a lamp on it. And then there's a window. And for some reason, I just turned and looked and I see this face like looking in the window. And this face was elongated. It was white. It had like a super wide mouth, like
Ooh.
almost like a nose, kind of like Voldemort almost from
Okay.
Harry
Yeah.
Potter, and just big, like
Less Pronounce, yeah.
Yeah, but his eyes, man, they were. I'm like, what is going on? And it was pale, like whitish gray, And I go, I'm not ashamed to say it. I screamed like a little girl.
Yeah, I would have.
And my buddy comes, he's like, what? I said, dude, there's something outside that window. He's like, man, there's nothing outside. I said, dude, there's something outside that window. And so he goes and I'm thinking he's kind of look like this out the window. No, he puts his freaking face like right up to the window like this.
Oh, God, no.
And he jumps off and he's like, dude, I just saw something run away from the window. And so he runs into his room and he brings out some implements used to harvest waterfowl, because we're not allowed to say certain things on YouTube. So,
is that a rule? You can't say. Okay.
Yeah. If you monetize things, you have to follow certain rules. So we had some big pews that you use to,
Okay, gotcha.
to take care of some like ducks and geese, right?
You had a specific tool.
Right. So we go running out, and I don't know why I got all of a sudden super brave. I guess because I was holding one. And so we go running out. Our pockets are full of shells. And when we get to the back door, he grabs like this big spotlight looking flashlight. I've got just a regular size mag light. And as we open up the back door, now he had 3 huge dogs, big farm dogs, mutts, massive dogs, not scared of anything. I mean, they didn't care about coyotes or anything like that. They'd see coyotes come through their backyard all the time. They just sit on the porch and look at them like, you're wasting my time. But these dogs were raising holy heck down near the, at the end of the yard, right in front of where the wood line is. And they are losing their mind. And so we go running out there and he's spotlighting them. And you could tell the hunks, or whatever you want to call it, the fur on their back and the back of their neck is just standing straight up. And these dogs are going crazy. Well, you hear this growl, like screech noise or whatever. And it was loud. And these dogs all of a sudden just turned and took off. And they come running right back. Because at this time, we're trying, come on, boys, come on. We're trying to call them back up to us. Because we were probably a good 15, 20 yards behind them. And we're trying to call them up off of this wood line. And they're just going crazy. But when that thing whenever that noise was, they come tearing off and they just blow right by us. And then, they start taking off. And then,
nope, it's gonna eat you.
Yeah, no kidding. So then I hear this noise again, and it's louder and it's closer. And so my buddy, he takes off running, right? I'm paying attention to what's ahead of me. I don't realize that he's already halfway back up to the house. And so I turn around, I'm like, I take off running. And when we get there, the dogs are trying to climb over each other to get into the house. These dogs never went in the house. They knew they weren't allowed in there. They slept in the pole barn, They were ready to get in the house. So we go flying in the house. We couldn't stop them. They went tearing off into the house. We went around locking doors, locking windows, pulling blinds. We even took his dad's chair and we put it like up in the stairwell, thinking that if something could climb the wall of the house and try to come in through the top, that would stop them from coming down the stairs. And I'm telling you, we stayed up as late as we could. And the next thing I remember is I'm getting kicked in my foot by his dad. And he wants to know what's going on. Here, I've got 2 dogs laying on me. I got a shotgun laying across my chest. My buddy's laying over on another part.
Planning to do, boys.
Yeah. And so we told him, when we're we're like 2 8-year-old kids trying to tell the same story at the same time, super hysterical.
Oh, you were only 8?
No. I was going into my senior year of high school. So I was like 17, but it was like 8-year-olds trying to tell you the same story at the same time.
Oh, I got you.
We were so hyped up, and he's like, just knock it off. He goes, what did you see? And so again, we started up. He tells us shut up, and he goes like, where did you see it? And so we both pointed towards the window. So he goes walking out the back around the side of the house, and he all of a sudden comes, because we see him looking around, and then all of a sudden he runs back in around the house, goes into his room, gets a bigger pew and loads it up, right? And then goes, come on, let's go. And we're like, we're not going. He goes, no, you said you saw it also by the house down in the woods. I go, we're not going. And my buddy's like, we're not going. He's like, yes, you are. Let's go. So he pulls the farm truck out. We get into the farm truck and we're trying to get the dogs to come with us too. And these dogs are like, nope, it's not happening. So we take off down there, and instead of pulling like kind of just inside the woods where we can still see the house and walk out, his dad drives right up to the front porch. He's like, where'd you see it? I go, in that window right there, right? So his dad grabs his pew and he walks up the porch, up the steps of the porch. Now, if you go in this house, immediate to your right is like a little tiny little conclave, and it has stairs that go upstairs. Huge living room, old fireplace. You walk through, there's a dining room, there's a little area over here, there's a bathroom, and then you walk down to a huge kitchen. Now, on the back right part of this kitchen is also another stairway that goes upstairs. So there's two ways of going up and two ways of coming down. So his dad's going, and I'm watching his dad. My buddy's watching his dad, and then his dad disappears. His dad goes into the back of the house, so we can't see him. Then all of a sudden we hear, start the truck, and he's yelling. And he comes running, and he jumps off the porch. The truck's already started. He jumps in. I'm in the back of the truck. One of the dogs decided to come down to hang out with us. My buddy's dad rips it into reverse, almost hits the dog, and takes off. Now, whatever he saw must have scared the dog as well, because the dog was at the house before we were.
What did Dad say?
He said he heard something. He never said he saw anything, but he said he heard something. We're thinking it knew we were coming in, and it went and was going to come down the back stairs. And so his dad got on the phone, made a phone call, and a couple hours later, this semi truck with a lowboy trailer with the excavator on it. They took the excavator, drove it straight down, and his dad just leveled that entire house that day.
Oh, are you serious? Right then and there.
Leveled it. He just completely tore it down. And I saw my buddy, years after that, and I said, man, do you remember that? He was like, dude, I can't forget that, but I do not want to talk about it.
So there could be a body under there.
Who knows? But they said, he says dad, when he said when his dad tore that house down, they had no more problems. So I don't know, man.
Did they was that the first time they had seen this being?
That's what he said. That's what my buddy said. He said he'd never seen anything like that on his property, and he grew up on this property.
When he was at the window, did you get any of the vibes that you were getting from the craft, or did you get a good feeling or a bad feeling?
No, bad feeling, man. Like this thing scared. Out of everything I've encountered, both supernatural or cryptid or just everyday life, people I've dealt with throughout my time being a law enforcement correctional officer. Dude, I've talked to mass murderers when I was a correctional officer. That thing freaked me out more than these guys did.
He gave you that negative vibe.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, look it up on Google, and you'll see some weird videos, man. They're spooky. So
yeah, man. When where was that? And you say
it's in Tennessee.
Tennessee, cool.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, you'll never forget that one.
Nope, not as long as I live, man.
They didn't have any more problems after that. So
no, nothing.
Interesting.
But he did say, before we saw it, when we did talk, it was really odd because coyotes would always come through the backyard and like to be visible and not go where they needed to go through the woods. So I don't know if that goes hand in hand with whatever, but yeah. So, some people say I saw a gray,
Yeah, I was going to say it sounded like one of those tall grays, or I don't like to push the fear narrative. I think contact is going to be a very good thing for us, but there are people that do have negative stories, and there are people that interpret whether any harm was done to them, they do have a negative interpretation of the events. But I mean, you guys weren't harmed, right?
Well, I don't know if
I imagine if this being wanted to harm you and it had the intelligence to get here, that it could have.
Yeah.
But
people.
Yeah, it does sound like one of those tall grays or whatever people talk about.
And again, I mean, here's the thing. I'm not disputing that it is an alien. I'm not disputing that it's not an alien, you know. So, I don't know what it is. Let me ask you though, man, because now you're really getting involved. Like you're really opening up your mind to a lot of stuff. And a lot of people don't realize how powerful the human mind is, how powerful the human psyche is.
I
You know,
I didn't I didn't at first, but yeah, you are the universe. Literally, it takes the entire universe to create you, and every human being has access to every little bit of it if they know how to use it. Not that it's saying I do, but I know people that are better at it than me, and there's a lot more that's possible than I thought was possible. I mean, there's people in my team that are doing stuff with their minds that you can't even I couldn't have comprehended, bending spoons and stuff, psionics, all that stuff's
yep.
real too.
Oh no,
Um,
bro, trust me. The experience I've had in the world, man, people that I've come in contact, man, I'm telling you, you if anybody doesn't believe something else is going on in the world, they're just lying to themselves. They've got
it's well at this point, you know, I look at it from a control perspective. My business was control. I go to a situation and what tools do I have to control this? What information do I have to con- control this person? How can I put myself into a better position so I don't get hurt or no one else gets hurt?
yep.
And so if you apply that thought process to uh, the Sasquatch stuff and ETs and everything, it all has to do with what we educate our population. We do not live in a physical reality as we perceive it, and our science knows this, but it's not taught in our schools per se. We are taught materialism. We are taught that everything is physical and we need to only abide by physical rules. But we know now from quantum mechanics that basically human beings exist as matter and as energy simultaneously.
Mhm.
It's quantum superposition. There are electromagnetic rules that can control our lives at a deeper level than our physical rules, and this is what disclosure and UAP disclosure is going to look like. It's not just, oh, by the way, there's little green men from Mars flying around. It's, oh, reality looks a lot different than we've been telling you. How do we make it up to you? This is what it looks like. But people are seeing these beings, and this is what I'm trying to help people understand. They're seeing beings that don't compute from the science that they have. We only teach Newtonian science and
Mhm.
physical things interacting with physical things. That's where high school education stops. We don't get into the quantum freaky stuff, but we have to because human beings play by quantum rules. They don't only play by Newtonian rules. There's a whole other set of rules that we don't really talk about, and you're going to have to start talking about them to understand what these beings are, where they're coming from, how they're getting here, because they're not just coming in a straight line from Mars. That's not how it works.
Right.
So this is what we're trying to shed some light on these subjects. I don't know how deep you want to get into it today, but the gist of it is we don't live in a physical reality. That's just the limiting functions of our brain that we perceive it as such. And these beings that are coming here, if you look into what the witnesses are saying, a lot of them are saying that, they appeared holographic. They appeared as light beings, or they appeared to me, they look like angels. They look like geometric energy forms that were shifting.
Mhm.
There's some witnesses now that are seeing all three of these things all at once. There's guys that see Sasquatch shapeshift into an energy form and then
Yep.
shapeshift into like a deer and then
Yep.
an orb and float away. Well, how do you explain that from a Newtonian perspective? You can't. You have to have some understanding of how energy works, and that for energy to be contained, it must be contained in geometric forms, and that energy can change from physical to plasma, and that these beings are doing it with their mind. So basically, all aliens are shapeshifters to some extent, some, if not all. But then there's the opposite end of the spectrum too, where they can appear as we do in low dense physical matter, and that's like the being that you saw, it looked like a real thing, right? It wasn't
Mhm.
a glowing
Nope.
being at
There,
all.
there was
And
no
then
glow about it.
Yeah, and they can look like that too. So there's a whole spectrum, but it all has to do with energy and how and the holographic nature of our reality. But it depends where you go in the world if anybody even knows about that. Nobody, not too many people know about it where I am. I didn't know about it. It wasn't something I needed to know to do my job. But
Right.
now that I do know about it, I feel like I feel like we've been misinformed. We've been not duped, but we haven't been given all the tools that we require to make sense of what's happening now in the world. What's happening now is there's people being contacted by extraterrestrials left, right, and center. There's a dude in the next town into me that had interactions with mantis beings on the beach. There's people that are having these plasmoids show up above their house every night because of their particular lifestyle and their frequency. There's people, there's families with histories of generational history of Sasquatch contact.
Yep.
Ontario is a forest that's nearly twice the size of Texas, and a lot of people are coming forward now about their experiences with these beings. And
See,
we have
I would love to get more people from Canada, because I'm a firm believer. There is so much more out there. Where Sasquatch, these beings. Let me ask you this question though: if you had the chance to have a close encounter with one, like you're out hiking or whatnot, or you're doing one of your CE3 or CE5 meditations with a group of people, would you want to see one, like an actual alien, just come out
well,
and
see,
try to contact with you?
that's the thing with CE5. You have to. There is an element of belief and what you're ready for, and these beings are not going to. I don't know if I'm ready for a full on ground confrontation, but there are
Right.
people that are and have done that because they're ready for it, and this is really happening.
Yeah.
I know a guy that's had interactions with the Greys, and there's been multiple groups that will do interaction that will do CE5, and there'll be Sasquatch that will show up.
Really?
We are going to try and attract attention of the Sasquatch beings because I believe that they are basically everywhere on the planet. I know that they're non-local. They can basically manifest anywhere at any time once there's an attachment to the person because they follow people and it's not like they need to walk there. They're interfrequential, interdimensional. They just can manifest wherever the hell they want. They're so far evolved from what we are, what we believe we are, that the abilities of them seem supernatural, but it's just because we really haven't been explain what this place is from an electromagnetic perspective. Everything functions on electromagnetism. Our human being, we are evolving energy before we're biology. It's our energy that evolves, and these beings are just so far evolved that they're basically in the next frequency of reality where they can consciously lower their energetic frequency or density to our reality when they want. And this is why we can see the spectrum of them looking like a gorilla to looking like a glowing being, shape shifting to turning into orbs.
So
They're energy beings.
so let me ask you this: so if they're energy beings and they're able to transform into a shape, do you think that they do it to transform into something that we can recognize, that we can what's the word I'm looking
Yes.
for?
I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, they're going to pick it. They're going to pick an image that you can compute or you think it's going to happen. So I think that's why lots of people see angels or Mother Mary or whatever. It's a paradigm that they're familiar with, and that basically they can read your brain. And they're it's not like they're reading your brain. They're from another larger frequency of reality. There are more information coming here. Beings from a less dense reality, essentially. So yes, I do exactly what you're saying. They'll pick something that's familiar with you, and the geometric shapes are going to be familiar to every being on every planet at some point because that's how energy works. It
Right.
has to go into these geometric shapes.
Bro, honestly, if I had more time, I could sit here and talk to you for hours.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we'll check whenever you want.
Dude, definitely. I'm definitely want to keep in touch, and if you guys do really try to reach out and to, communicate with the Sasquatch form, the being that is Sasquatch.
I know groups other than my group that are doing it now successfully. I see no reason why it won't work, but it's just a matter of yeah, I understand that most of the sightings and interactions are benevolent, but there's definitely fear involved when you call in 10-foot,
Yeah.
Sasquatch people. I do believe that they're benevolent and they may mean no harm to us, but there's still an element of fear. So we'll get past that, and we have some experts in our group that have been making contact for years. So we got the ins. We know what we're doing.
Yeah, I would love to talk to one of those people.
Yeah, man. I can point you in the right direction.
Cool. Well, Tyler, hey, man, that's our show for tonight, man. I am so glad that you reached out and were able to, connect. And, like I said, I've got tons of questions, and yeah, I'm definitely I'm gonna get the right questions down, and then I'm gonna send them to you because, yeah, I'm fascinated by a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, buddy. Anytime. Thanks for having me on.
Well, hold on. If you want to stay in the lobby just for a moment, I'll go ahead and get back to you as soon as we close out the show. All right.
Okay, dude. Cheers.
You guys, I'm telling you right now, that was an absolute killer of an interview. Like, for real. I mean, everything that Tyler was saying makes sense. We've heard way too many encounters of people that had, encounters with Sasquatch where they've seen it phase out. They've seen it walk through a portal. They've seen it, turn into like the Predator where it would just pixelate or whatever and just disappear. This just gives us a whole nother chapter in this whole cryptid community that we should really take a look at. And, after listening to Tyler tonight, I'm not so sure that what I believed before as them being just flesh and blood creature, relic hominid, there could be something else to that. So that being said, everybody, I want to say thank you so much to all the subscribers, all the people who like, comment, share. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to give me 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or the entire interview. I truly appreciate it. My goal is by the end of April to have 5,000 subscribers. I am just a little over 1,400. Again, everybody that's subscribed, thank you so much. I truly appreciate you. Again, if you guys have ever had an encounter and like to come on the show, please email me at the Cryptid Podcast 72@gmail.com. As my buddy Josh always says, stay prayed up. And as I always like to say, remember, a legend begins with a sighting. Have a great night, everybody. I'll see you later.
I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?